Hey everyone, it's Ethan from Cooking Travelers, and today I'm just going to go ahead and narrate this kouign-amann recipe. Now, kouign-amann is a Breton pastry. It means buttered cake, and to make it, you're going to start by adding about a cup of warm water to a mixing bowl, and then pour in about 2 teaspoons of baker's yeast. Now, you want baker's yeast, not nutritional yeast or brewer's yeast, because neither one of those can leaven bread. Sprinkle in about a 3-finger pinch of sugar, and stir it and leave the mixture to activate for about 10 minutes. And you'll know it's activated when you see a layer of foam on the top of the liquid. Once your yeast is activated, go ahead and add in about 1.5 cups of flour. And now, professional bakers suggest that you use high quality flour, like a bread flour or a pastry flour, and that's because they have more protein and they'll give you a different textured result. You see here I have type 55, which is the same as all-purpose flour, and I enjoyed it just fine. So I would say if that's all you have on hand, go ahead and don't be afraid to use it. You still get a really nice quality product. Mix the flour together, either with a spatula or with your hands, until it starts to take on the consistency of a loaf of bread dough. You want something that's going to pull away from the sides of the bowl and not stick to everything that it touches. You just keep adding flour until you get something like that. Then cover it with a clean kitchen towel and leave it to sit for about 2 hours until it's doubled in size. And the warmer the environment, the faster that's going to happen. Now, once your dough is doubled in size, roll it out onto a floured surface and just go ahead and punch it down. Then throw it on a floured baking pan and put it in either the fridge or the freezer for about 10 minutes or so, just to chill it. Then get your block of butter. You're looking for about 1/2 pound of butter, and lay it on a floured surface and sprinkle the top with flour as well. Then we're going to soften it, and to soften it, all you do is basically beat the hell out of it with a rolling pin. In this case, I'm using a wine bottle as a rolling pin. You don't want to touch the butter with your hands too much. That's going to warm it up too much and make it melt. And the trick to this recipe is really keeping the butter cool. So try to flip it with your knife or with a spatula, and keep flipping it and beating it with the rolling pin until you see it's got that texture where it folds instead of breaking. You can trim the edges off to make it a nicer rectangle, and then you want to roll out your dough and trim that as well. And you'll lay the butter on top of the dough so that the bottom edges are matching, and then you can trim the dough again if you like, just to make sure that the butter is roughly 2/3 the length of the dough and almost as wide. Now this is the secret to any laminated dough right here. This is the move that you have to master. You fold the top down and the bottom up, and then you will spin it 90 degrees and roll it flat. That's it. That's the whole process. You do that and you repeat that move over and over again, and that's how you build up the layers that result in that real flaky puff pastry. What you're doing here is you're sealing butter in between layers of dough so that when this goes in the oven, the steam in between, or the water in between the layers puffs up those layers, and the butter deep fries them. That's how you get that real flaky crispiness. The trick to really making this work is keeping that butter cold. So after you've gone ahead and just done one fold, return this to the fridge or the freezer for 10 to 15 minutes, just to really keep the mixture from getting too hot. Once it's cool, you're going to return it to the work surface and just repeat the move. You roll it out, fold the top down and the bottom up. And then a trick you can use to keep track of how many times you've folded it is you just push your fingers into the dough to mark the number of folds. So that's the second fold, you do 2 dots, third fold you do 3 dots, and you're looking for a total of 4 folds. That's a trick that comes straight to you from Chef Steps, which I thought was pretty cool. Once you've done your 4 folds, you've got a pastry with about 240 layers built into it. And so it's time to take this and turn it into kouign-amann. What you'll do is you'll brush the flour off your work surface and sprinkle the work surface with sugar, roll the dough back out, and coat it with a lot of sugar. I mean, there's a ton of sugar that goes into this. Basically, just keep coating it until you couldn't believe anybody could possibly consume that much sugar, and then roll it out a bit more to make sure you work it all into the dough. After that, you're going to cut the dough into squares, and those squares are what we're going to fold into our final pastries. Now, when you're cutting the dough, be sure to pick the knife up between the cuts rather than sliding the blade, because when you slide the blade, you can seal the layers down, and that will end up inhibiting the puff of the pastry. I'm going to show you 3 different folds for your final pastries. This first one is the typical fold you'll see in most online recipes for Queen Amand. And what you do is you take the 4 corners and you fold them together and pinch them at the top. And then you're supposed to take this and put it inside a buttered, sugared muffin tin. And it really works out great as long as you have a muffin tin. But if you don't have one, you can use these other 2 folds. These will work very well on a flat surface without the structure of the muffin tin around them. This first one is the vol au vent, and it's kind of complicated to shoot on film without a special rig, but there is a tutorial in the article that I did on this same recipe, so you can check that out over at cookingtravelers.com. But it's a very easy fold to get once you've tried it once or twice, and it creates a really great looking finished product that you can stuff with apples or jam or chocolate, whatever you really like. The second fold that I'm going to show you is called the pinwheel. Basically, all you're doing is creating 4 diagonal cuts that don't meet, so the center is untouched. And that'll give you 4 triangles that are essentially pointing towards the center of this pastry. All you do is fold 1 corner of each of the resulting triangles down to the middle of the pastry, and you overlap them as you go. And that creates a little pocket that you could also stuff with a filling like jam or something like that. Now, fillings are popular, but not necessary. If you make this with just the sugar and salt, you technically still have Queen Amand. Go ahead and take your pan, and you want to slather it with butter. And we're going to use the butter to stick more sugar to the bottom of the pan because there's not enough in this recipe yet. The sugared pan is what's going to give us this really great caramelized coating on the bottom of the pastry, and it's kind of the trademark symbol of the pastry. So go ahead and add plenty of sugar. Then you want to throw these on your pan. Sprinkle the top with sugar and just a little bit of salt. This is where I typically add the salt. I keep it very, very minimal because I find that I like the product better with just a little bit of salt. Toss them in a 400-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, and the end result should be crunchy, flaky deliciousness. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Check out Cooking Travelers. I will see you next time.